be too bad. I think it's just going to be Sangwon.
Yeah, basically, so Atal'Dazar, Necrotic management, whether or not your tank is able to get the fattest dwarf racials of 2020 and be able to remove his stacks, and then, yeah, like you said, Sangwon management for MOTHERLOAD.
That's right. All right, we're ready to go as Paint for Femme and Eclatax are fighting for their tournament lives in Atal'Dazar.
There we go. We already see a mirror comp. So Eclatax definitely showing that they can play these kind of meta comps in all of the dungeons so far. We see the double DK plus the Hunter for both of those teams, as both of them are gathering a really big pull. Eclatax doing this big pull while Paint for Femme is actually doing a snap onto Razan.
Yeah, Paint for Femme using the Angry Toast snap to move the entire team to Razan here with a bunch of that trash from the left-hand side. Wow, this is really sketchy. They are going to be okay, though.
So
Eclatax, though.
And their tank going down as well. They did manage to finish it off, or it looks like at least. But yeah, they're already up to 3 deaths, though. Just a chain reaction here from one of their DKs going down, then they're missing interrupts and the damage, and therefore their tank goes down. Oh no, this Colossus is actually so huge because of all of the trolls dying around it.
Oh, it's coming.
They're just trying to cut it out, but...
Oh, no.
Just so much damage. Oh no. There we go. They didn't manage to finish it off. But yeah, that unfortunately cost them quite a bit of time.
That's... that was spicy there for a moment, but Eclatax able to get through with only 4 deaths that first pull, getting them 29% count. Paint for Femme getting a little bit less trash count, but they are killing Razan in the meantime, so definitely an efficient strategy coming out from Paint for Femme. Meanwhile, Eclatax going into that obelisk. That's going to allow their cooldowns time to reset while they make their way to Priestess Lunza.
Yeah, and it looks like there's still some Sky Screamers up here for Paint for Femme as well. Now they're up to 25% trash, and of course also Razan being down, and their Bloodlust committed as well. Eclatax, on the other hand, do you think they forgot about their Bloodlust? They must have forgotten.
Maybe, or maybe this is a very optimistic, we're only getting 1 Bloodlust this dungeon, let's use it on Yasma.
You think
But
so?
I don't think they're in the sub 10-minute range with their pathing here like we saw from Method EU. So yes, I believe that they probably made a mistake there with the Bloodlust. The question is, maybe they're planning to use it on this pull. So if they use it now, they'll get it back right like at the middle or end of Yasma. So yeah, here it is on this. This is surprising to me though. I think this pull is easier. Oh, they're pulling in the side stuff too. So that might be they may be only able to do that with the Bloodlust. Those 2 side enemies. That's going to get them quite a bit of count. Meanwhile, Paint for Femme snapping the mid pack and a bunch of other things. Femme taking so much damage.
This is so interesting.
All of his defensives used here.
This is so interesting to see because all of the Atals we've seen so far had completely different strategies by all 4 teams that we've seen. And this is a time trial dungeon, right? And all of the times were very close to one another. But all of the teams just managing to get the time for time trials with completely different strategies. This is really, really nice. And I like that Atal is such an open dungeon where you can really do those kind of different routes and strategies.
Yeah, and the affix is really changing what's possible in here this week relative to previous weeks when we've had stuff like bolstering in here, really throwing a wrench into things. Eclatax about to get their first boss done, but they still have Razan alive. So they're going to need to find a way to get down there. Maybe they'll do a snap down as well. Oh, no.
Oh, no, it's reset.
Oh, no. Oh, that's bad.
No.
That's not what you want to have happen on that boss. So somebody didn't collect a cursed blood pool, and instead of killing the boss, they accidentally healed it. And then they all ran down the stairs thinking it would die.
Yeah, but
it did not die.
It looks like they all had the debuff. Maybe someone picked it up too early? I think maybe they picked it up too early, and then it ran out.
Yeah, maybe it expired.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody used something like, I don't know, some kind of immunity or something, threw a wrench into things. I'm not sure, but that is a huge bad thing for Eclatax.
Yeah, that is definitely a huge time loss. Yeah, Paint for Femme, they are they did deal with Razan. Looks like the observer view is not on the correct person.
We're just taking a look at Lunza performing her ritual here. We'll see if anything happens to interrupt her. Oh no, some adventurers are on the way. That's gonna ruin Lunza's day.
Oh, she doesn't like that one, as they're pulling all
Wow, look at all this stuff that they're bringing here. They're bringing that Colossus onto Lunza. Oh, Ricky goes down, though.
They do have a battle rest, so they're getting back up here, but they need to make sure they immediately get their blood pools for the transfusion cast. But Fem is dropping really low. He does not have any defensives available anymore. No racial, no shield will no last stand. Definitely needs to be sure to recover here and somehow reset his necrotic as well as the transfusion is going out. And it looked like Niwa didn't actually have a blood, so Alunza healed to 96%. It looked like they did not have the blood debuffs on everybody, so lots of issues here for Pain for Femme as well. Well, Eclatax now managed to finish off Priestess after getting a reset on her. Now, Pain for Femme still quite a bit ahead because, I mean, if you look at the trash percent, there are a lot of trash ahead. So Pain for Femme, even with the heal going off on Alunza, still ahead. And then Eclatax also has to deal with Rezan, which, I mean, Rezan is a boss that takes a lot longer than Priestess does. I mean, in theory.
Unless you heal Priestess, yes, which unfortunately Pain for Them did do. So I think we might be seeing an extra transfusion, increasing the time of this boss fight back up to a normal boss fight time. Very unfortunate sequence of events for both teams on Alunza. The timer's still looking pretty good, though, for Paint for Femme, given how much of that trash count they have, given this is their second boss going down.
Yeah, definitely. Eclatax also doing some of these snapping pulls here. So they're dealing with some of the skyscrapers. Oh no, one of the DKs. Okay,
they're jumping down intentionally.
Okay.
Yeah, they want to go Razan.
Okay.
They're not going to be snapping anything onto Razan, so this is definitely a spot where their route could probably be sped up by adding some kind of misdirection here. Looks like they are going to go grab two skyscreamers maybe, or maybe they're just making their way over to the stairs for the line of sight purposes, as sometimes the line of sight on this side of the arena can be a little finicky.
It just doesn't work at all, right? Which is what finicky means.
That was my diplomatic way of saying that. Yep. they're gonna. The staircase here though
as
is
a caster. As a melee, not so much, I guess. But as a caster, very annoying if you have to walk all the way to one side and then walk all the way back to the stairs because of that line of sight mechanic just not working on the side pillars here on this side. But since they are playing Night Elves, all of them, they can just make sure they Shadow Melt will not move at all. It will be a little bit more damage on the tank, because if you Shadow Melt off the fixate, of course, you get more bleed effects on the tank. But it is a fortified environment, so it should not be too big of a deal for them to heal that off.
All right, we got some Skyscreamers getting misdirected down now. They'll be joining the fun for Eclatax, adding a little bit of count, but this is still not like a massive pull onto Razan like we've seen out of the fastest times in this dungeon.
Yeah, I mean...
Pain for Femme, meanwhile, going into that obelisk.
Yeah, so they're not doing the kiting strategy, otherwise they would not be dealing with that obelisk, right? We've seen the kiting strat out of Method EU earlier with their sub 10-minute timer, but Pain for Femme dealing with that, dealing with the tank buster definitely means that they will just make sure they finish off, which is, I mean, interesting because they're at 100% trash percentage, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure what has happened here.
Oh,
with,
maybe they just use it for skip.
Femme.
Oh, they're not actually killing it. Yeah, they just
maybe
skipping.
yeah maybe they have somebody in the realm there, or maybe they're gonna kite 3 obelisks. The first time we saw Atal'Dazar kited, it was 3 obelisks, and Urgroth is actually the enemy that is the most problematic when doing the kite, as we saw when Zaylia was doing it. It's the one that lags behind the most because it spends so long casting those Dark Furies, and you can't get too far away from it, or else it'll go a snapping. So they need to. This might be part of the strategy here. That would explain why they're at 100% count, because otherwise 100% doesn't really make much sense for them to already be at if they're planning on getting 3 whole awakened enemies of extra count. That would imply that they pulled something by accident earlier in the path.
Yeah, it makes sense. So they are doing the kiting strategy, but just dealing with one of them because it does make it a lot more difficult, right? And we saw Zaylia kiting earlier, and it definitely did not seem as easy as in some of the other dungeons. I think in Freehold, there's definitely more room for them to kite. Well, here in this dungeon, he needs to take a very difficult path. And then there's the fire gauntlet that can cause issues, and so on and so on. Well, Pain for Femme actually dealt with the middle pack, right? So
yeah,
looks like Nemo is going to have a little bit more space to kite compared to what Zaylia had in their run.
They're really giving him... So there's a lot of different places that you can go in the Atal'Dazar so far from what we've seen. You can go up towards where Alunza was, and you can go down towards where Razan is, and both of those are kind of valid kiting strategies we've seen before. I wonder what made Method EU choose not to do the Razan Pit kite. Maybe there was just trash in the way that they didn't want to actually pull as part of their route, and they figured out that you could do the Alunza side, because the Alunza side pathing looked pretty sketchy.
Yeah.
But I think Paint for Femme has cleared out basically all the trash from both of those, so we'll get to see where Mero decides is the best place to bring those awakened enemies, or if they have an entirely new, race car circuit planned out altogether.
Yeah, and Eclatax, on the other hand, unfortunately, they're still lagging behind quite a bit because of that. Those problems that they had earlier on. They also seem to be dealing with the tank buster here. They're going to be dealing with 2 obelisks, actually.
If they hadn't reset Lunza, I think that they would be working on Volcall now as well. I think they'd still be behind, but I don't think they'd be behind by a huge margin. As it stands, they are behind by quite a large amount, but it's probably not going to matter too much either way, because they're probably still going to win if Paint for Femme messes up their kite,
sure.
And they're probably going to lose if they don't. Paint for Femme might have enough time if it goes wrong early enough to go and pull again, but that's really the only thing that is a question here. It's Paint for Femme's match to lose from here.
Yep, definitely, as they only have that last boss plus the kite that they have to do. Now, kiting... when you see this kiting strategy and you see the healer just run around, it looks relatively easy, but it's really not, because there's so many things you need to care about. First of all, you need to make sure that no one over aggroes you, and this is probably the reason why we saw Xaylia earlier got hit by a spider to get low HP, and then by healing yourself you get healing aggro, and it just makes sure that no one else can over aggro you, because if you're not with your group and someone drops low and uses a healing pot or something like that, it can definitely cause over aggroing, and then those awakened mobs will snap back to the group. And if they snap back to the group without the healer being there, that will just cause a wipe. And another thing you need to be careful about is to not walk over any sort of snapping spot, because if Meebo, while having aggro from the awakened mobs, walks over, let's say, a pebble somewhere on the side, they will all snap to him and they will immediately one-shot him, because Meebo is not a tank, so therefore definitely gonna get one-shot. So lots of really grave mistakes that can happen here, and if any of those things happen, it will just cause an immediate wipe.
Yeah, this kiting, it looks like he's gonna go the Xaylia way of up towards the stairs with the fire towards Alunza. This is really sketchy, though. You really want to not get burned by the fire. Looks like he's found an opening to get through here, but very spooky. Oh my goodness. Oh, he gets meleeed by the blood of the Corruptor. Oh, it's gonna be okay though. 1 melee survived. Boy, that was close. Now kiting around to the side here. This is gonna... The reason that you want to go around the side here is because you want to be able to double back so that the spider doesn't get too far behind the others, because the spider's the slowest one because it spends some time casting. So you need to do a little bit of doubling back. It's not as bad as if Urgroth Breaker...
Oh, step back!
The spider ports back! So threat has returned now to the other side. And now we have the spider in on the boss fight here with the rest of the team. They do have some interrupts, so they might be okay. But this is very sketchy. 14%. Oh, Ricky and Shelly go down on the side of Paint for Femme. 13% on Yasma. Femme alive. Boyweaver Malthier gonna cause some problems here. They're out of interrupts, but a Spell Reflect is coming out from Femme. That's gonna send that one back. Crippling Pestilence gonna be interrupted by Sebek.
Wicked Pain
9% on Yasma. 8%.
This curse
Two
will go
people
through.
left alive here. Oh, they have to make sure that doesn't make... Oh, the connection with the boss! That's gonna kill Seb. Now it's just Femme. Femme, 5% against Yasma here. Has to kill it all by himself. Is gonna be getting chain casted on by the spider. There's that Noxious Venom into the Strength of the Warden Major. He gets hit by the Skewer.
Wicked Pain.
3%. Oh, he goes down 3% on Yasma. Pain for Femme have wiped here. Unless they wiped. Unless Mero somehow made it back. Eclatax, meanwhile, have made it to Yasma, and they are in great position to capitalize on Paint for Femme's mishap here. They will be able to kill this boss with just 2 awakened enemies. If they can do that, they are going to secure the 1-0 lead in this series. I mean, oh my
this
goodness.
can cause problems for Eclatax though, right? Because they actually need to make sure they interrupt. the Void Weaver properly, and then you also want to make sure they kite the pools on the ground properly, but it looks like they're doing a really good job.
They didn't even have the Void Weaver, yeah, they just had the Fear Guy and the
they
Blob.
had only the blood that they need to deal with, and the blood's usually not as big of a deal here in Yasma, just because you need to move anyway because of the spiders, so it should be okay. It's a lot more damage on the tank, but yeah, so it should be okay for them to finish this off. But yeah, I mean, Pain for Femme, they need to do the kiting shot again. At this point,
so
they committed,
Pain for Femme they have a 5-second advantage on the death timer here, and they have all their DPS able to just do damage without focusing on an extra target. So they might be able to catch up here, even if nothing goes wrong for Eclatax, but it is going to be very close. And Eclatax, once they've killed that Blood of the Corruptor, they just have extra damage on Yasma relative to Pain for Femme because they have that healer contributing that damage, and their DPS players don't have to be so defensive because they are getting healed.
Yep, and it looks like they're
45%.
dealing with the Soul Rend here, with the Ring of Peace as well coming out for Eclatax. If you look at the boss percent difference, it is 45, so 20%. It's not actually a big of a deal, but Shelly going down, they do have a battle rest, so they can get them back up. But this means the 5 seconds advantage is gone now.
Has disappeared,
so
yeah.
it's now even on deaths.
Oh, I think this is it. I think Eclatax has it.
Yeah, I think
just 15% left on the boss, and they're going to take the win here over Pain for Femme in a very, very impressive fashion. Here, keeping up with Pain for Femme despite mishaps on their own side. They were able to capitalize on things going wrong, and that is going to be a 1-0 lead for Eclatax here, fighting to stay in this tournament.
Oh my goodness, Eclatax was ready to go, and you know, it was like right as you guys were talking, Dratnos, about making sure that you weren't staying far away from the caster, and then boom, the caster just ports it right back. It was like perfect timing. What I'm saying is that you did it.
I am a genius. That is true.
I don't know about that.
Thank you, Jack.
Oh, no problem, buddy. Tattles, that was, you know, we were really looking for, you know, a bit of a change of pace from that last series, and we've kind of fallen back into the pit again.
Too much sax music, bro.
Sax is too strong.
Stop that.
Nope. Send you back to band camp, all right. Nagura, do you play the sax? Any musical instruments?
I do not. I played the clarinet. Is that the
that's
English word?
close enough, you know, woodwind. Yeah.
That one,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, quite.
That one.
Yes. I played the trumpet, all right.
You did.
Yeah, that's right.
That says a lot about you.
What did you play, Tattles?
I didn't play an instrument.
Wow, that says a lot about you.
Yeah, I don't. You're
Yeah,
what
what is that supposed to mean? Well, with that Atal'Dazar and the Raps, you know, it wasn't slated to be as quick, but it's very interesting to see, you know, I guess like a lighter version, you know, a normal version of Atal'Dazar's looking like for these other teams, Dratnos, where it was slated to be that 12-30 finish, something like that.
Yeah, I mean that run was getting to the range where Method EU could have done it twice almost in that time, from both teams. But I agree. I think Atal'Dazar is one of these maps that's just, it's so great to watch because the teams they have such different ideas about what the best way to attack this dungeon is.
Yeah, let's start breaking down some of those as well.
Yeah, so first and foremost, we have the first pull from Pain for Femme. Dude, their snap on Razan is crisp. You see Femme, he walks to the undead, or he walks to the living side. They grab the Colossus, they snap it all to the boss. It gets just nuked down to perfection. That is a great pull. Then on Eclatax's side, they have a mishap where they reset Priestess Alunza because they believe somebody grabbed the blood, the boss healed, everybody walked away, and then the boss reset. No, dude, that's so unlucky. It's insane. Then it looks like Pain for Femme is just going to play their match. They end up kiting the obelisks. It looks like it's going to go okay. The spider snaps back.
It's not going okay.
Everything is not okay. It's like the house on fire meme, and everybody's like, this is fine. It's like Femme is trying to solo Yasma at 5%. He is that dog. This is not fine. Everything is not okay. And then Eclatax won the match. Okay, so in all honesty, if Eclatax started out week 1, how much better do you think they would be? Because they look like a week 1 EU team.
At least 25% better.
I say
better.
32%.
32? Okay.
Yep.
Drados, math?
Yes. Mhm.
All right. Quite.
Okay, Salute, thank you.
I mean, of course, substantially better, and it's all about like the depth of what dungeons they're confident in and are able to perform at like a high level, for example. Because all the teams get better over time throughout this tournament, but by getting better, it also makes them take some riskier plays, and like, oh, now we have time to start working on kiting, so it will be more competitive against the top teams. Then you're running that strategy against a lower seeded team, and it ends up burning you, Nagura.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing to note about Eclatax as well is not only are they doing some of those like MDI strats that we've been seeing from the other teams, but they also actually, which is more impressive to me, they've been playing those meta comps, right? We see the Triple Hunter, we see the Double DK Hunter, we see even the Vengeance Demon Hunter has been played by their tank as well in some of the keys. And that is something that is not so easy to adapt unless you've been playing it before, maybe on live servers, right? But learning those kind of specs and classes for the MDI specifically requires, like you really need to master that class, because you need to know what to do in every single situation, not only damage-wise, but also defensive-wise and utility-wise as well. So that is very impressive.
It is, and that's one of the things that we're looking at too, is just the multi-classing and developing that we're, coming to expect from a lot of these teams. Is that, yeah, you can start running in a composition that looks completely, normal on live servers for pushing a key, but with how refined the meta has become so far, Dranos, it's just completely the wrong answer at this point.
Yeah, the ability to multi-class between hunters, death knights, maybe a rogue, maybe a DH, protection warrior, and vengeance demon hunter. Having players that are able to, pick up those specs quickly, there are not very many people in the world who are capable of doing that and competing at an MDI level. And Eclatax are showing up here and showing that, they're able to do that, which is very, very impressive. So I agree. I hope we see more of them in future MDIs.
Yeah, without question, because they've definitely started stepping up in a very quick way that we haven't really seen out of other teams. Previously, the 7th, 8th teams would come in, have some strategies, have some multi-classing, but generally not as much. And then we wouldn't really see them once again, Tettles.
Absolutely. And it comes down to, like, you need veteran MDI experience, and you need multiple weeks worth of play to be able to push through. And like Eclatax this week in the 3rd week, they're not going to make it to LAN. Like it would require them to get first place, and I don't suspect they're going to get first place.
They can't even do it with a first place anymore, unfortunately.
So they can't make it to LAN. But what they can do is get really good MDI experience here, and if they're able to convert it into a future MDIs or continue to be able to push on to create better strategies and have like a good fundamental understanding of how the dungeons work, they will be able to improve moving forward and potentially take that into future events.
Yeah, I mean, there's still clout and glory on the line for them here, not to mention prizing for this weekend, so they definitely still have stuff to play for.
At least 10 YouTube chat viewers that keep typing FC Cucaracha.
What? I don't know if that's pronunciation, although my French is quite poor.
That is absolutely how you pronounce that word.
French?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you're next door neighbors to France, Nagura, you probably know French.
Can you translate that for me, Nagura?
Yeah, that's how that works.
FC Cucaracha, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I actually speak all of the European languages.
Ah, lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Please translate.
Yes.
It means Teddle.
That's fast.
Anything to get him off the desk onto that one.
Yes.
Well, now we're ready to get underway as Game 2 between Paint for Femme and Eclatax gets going.
Alright, so there we go. We are in MOTHERLOAD, and we see the triple hunter comp by both of these teams. We've seen Paint for Femme actually have a very, very impressive MOTHERLOAD the last cup around, where they had, I think they almost beat Method EU even, or did they beat them?
They won their first MOTHERLOAD against Method
Sure,
EU.
yeah,
So
exactly, yeah.
They have got some strats in this place, and we're seeing them do. They have got some strats in this place, and we're seeing them do this thing. This meld strategy to activate a bunch of Peacekeepers here at the start. Whereas Eclatax have a much slower time trial time, but as we just saw in Atal'Dazar, time trial times, you don't just get to turn in a ticket that says I have a faster time trial time and then win the map. You actually have to, execute it properly. Unfortunately, first mistake here on the board is going to be on the side of Eclatax as Alex goes down on their first pull. That's going to consume their battle res. Very large pull for Eclatax. Bloodlust still not used here for them.
Yeah, both teams actually holding on to that Bloodlust. Pain for Femme now doing that big Peacekeeper pull and also engaging the boss. They gotta be very careful here to not drop Sanguine in a bad position. And we saw Femme use that first aid here on himself, and that was because of aggro. So he wanted to create some healing aggro, and that is why he actually used it. We've seen other teams use that first aid strategy already for other pulls, specifically in Shrine. And I think it's a very, very cool little trick that the team started doing. It's just something that we haven't seen in a long time in World of Warcraft, where people start using first aid.
Yeah, so we have Pain for Femme here. They've got this strategy that isolates like 7 Peacekeepers and pulls it onto the first boss. They do have to be really careful of Sanguine while fighting all these, because one bad Sanguine puddle could lead to all of these, or in the worst case scenario, the boss healing up to full. But if they're able to execute this pull properly, they'll get something like 42% trash count from this first pull. You do have to be careful though, there's a lot of mobs attacking Femme here. If this pull goes wrong for them, they are going to be so far behind for the rest of the dungeon.
There's so many Peacekeepers, and but at least the one thing that is good about dealing with Peacekeepers here in this boss is that if you constantly just move the boss, the mobs will naturally just spread out because of the cast of the shield, right? So even if, as long as you DPS them properly, you want to DPS them from the back to the front instead of front back, because if a mob dies in the front, it will heal all of the mobs in the back with that Sanguine pool that it drops, right? So this is why on Sanguine weeks, you usually just want to start, if the tank is kiting, you want to start DPSing the mobs in the back, making sure that Sanguine drops there instead of all the way in the front.
That's going to be one of them healing a little bit. Not actually a full heal, though. That's fortunate for Pain for Femme. The boss is about to go down here as well, so they're about to get access to this graveyard. If something goes wrong, and something is about to go wrong for Femme, who's getting slapped around by those charged claws. Fortunately, all the mobs decide it is time to cast Energy Shield, and as you say, they are targeting those back Peacekeepers first to prevent the mobs running through Sanguine. Great target choosing from Pain for Femme. This is going to get them up to something like 30% count, I guess, at the start of the run. Yeah, that is not bad. 31% from their first pull onto the first boss. Does mean that they're not going to get any more Peacekeeper count, though, at the start of the dungeon. Eclatax taking the different strategy here. They're going to get more of their count here at the start, but it's going to take them a little bit longer to get that first boss down.
Yeah, Pain for Femme gearing up to do a really huge pull here right after that first boss. This is very dangerous just because of these mobs doing so much damage to the tank. So now as they're dropping low, we see the Ring of Peace come out as well to separate those mobs because of Sanguine as well, and huge amounts of damage by all of those hunters, all of them doing 500k DPS. Well done, as they now finished all of this trash up. They're up to 44% trash, and looks like they're mounting up. So this is interesting to see from Pain for Femme, because almost all of the other teams we've seen in MOTHERLOAD so far dealt with almost all of their trash with the Peacekeeper area in front of the first boss. But Pain for Femme already moving to that next boss with only 44%.
Femme here doing a skip here. Yeah. Oh, he dies on the skip, but that is okay. That's only going to cost them 15 seconds, right? 10 seconds to cast the res and 5 seconds for the death penalty. So not the end of the world for Pain for Femme. That skip was still successful. They're going to go into the second boss here without doing any of that other trash at the... So they're going to need quite a bit of trash from both the R&D wing and from the VMZ. Meanwhile, on the side of Eclatax, disaster has struck as their tank and their healer are both down. They're going to have to reset this boss.
Yeah, this is actually
coming out.
A really big loss for them, because not only... I mean, it's a tyrannical environment, right? So resetting a boss always costs you a lot of time, but then on top of that, they also dealt with some of the trash here, so they'll have to reset the trash too and re-pull it, specifically the Peacekeeper, which was really high HP, and I'm not really sure where they got the Peacekeeper from, so not sure what or how they will get it back. Yeah, so big time loss for Eclatax, unfortunately. Pain for Femme, though, on the other hand, they're on Astruck already, 44% trash, definitely having a pretty clean run so far, except that death on Femme, which, as you mentioned, didn't cost them as much time. But yeah, disaster for Eclatax, unfortunately.
Yeah, Eclatax gonna go back into this pull, although they need to res here. So hang on. They've pulled a Peacekeeper, so that means they're not gonna have access to mass res. They're gonna have to do 2 solo reses on their 2 hunters. Because one member of their group is in combat, mass res is no longer gonna work. They're gonna have to just fire off those solo reses. It seems like it would have been faster to just let the Masras happen
Yeah.
and then maybe go pull the stuff, but this might still be faster because you have to wait for that Peacekeeper to waddle over towards the boss. Meanwhile, Pain for Femme pulling the Taskmaster here into Azrock. They're going to get a little bit of extra count here right at the end of this boss fight. They actually have CC on the 2 Earth Ragers. That's not something you see all that often, but is a pretty good strat here to avoid it becoming a problem at the end of this fight. The second set of Earth Ragers.
Yeah, and this is the second team we see actually pull that Taskmaster group on top of Azrac. I think the very first team to ever do that was Method in A, where they showed that they can pull that trash pack on top. Almost all other teams were avoiding that trash pack because Taskmaster is a very annoying trash pack to deal with because of the shield that he casts, where basically all of the damage around him is like the friendly fire around him is getting redirected to him, and then he also takes reduced damage. So fighting, and you want to make sure you're not inside his shield, and it's not really interruptible. So that's why most of the teams are trying to avoid it, unless you can pull it on top of Azrock. So well done by Pain for Femme, finishing that off, and now we see another skip towards Rixa Flaxflame. They're up to 50% trash, so it's still quite a lot that they need here.
Yeah, so they need 50% trash or so. I wonder if they're going to kite obelisks, because if they're going to get 50% trash from the final wing of the dungeon, that might be setting up the racetrack for their obelisk kiting. That might be what they're up to here. I'm not sure. They might just be thinking that is good trash anyways to pull. It might be better than the R&D wing.
I mean, it's definitely a possibility, right? To kite the last... We've seen Method EU attempt to do the kiting strat last cup, where it was Grievous, and they didn't manage to actually do it, but it definitely opened up this like possibility of another team to do it. And yeah, it's possible that they actually clear all this trash and just kite the obelisks, as you mentioned, because all of them are still up. All 4 obelisks are still available for them.
Yeah, I mean, they're planning to do some. They're either going to fight 3 or 4 obelisks with the last boss, or they're going to kite at this point. They could definitely audible to any of those plans. They're not wearing that Bitband logic loop combo that gives them a bunch of extra healing from the hunters. So, but that might have only been necessary on Grievous. That might not be something that they need on non-Grievous weeks. So, yeah, we'll have to see exactly what Pain for Femme's plan is here. They do have a pretty fast Motherload time trial time, though. Their Motherload time trial was 15 minutes and 51 seconds, so that is quite quick. That was a number 4 time on that dungeon, which is better than their average was.
Yep, and I mean, at this point, I think they're almost certainly gonna kite, because doing all of this trash in the last boss area, there's no way that they think that is actually just the most efficient way to deal with your trash, right? Because of it is sanguine, so the Peacekeeper area is annoying to deal with, but it still just gives so much more percentage compared to the pulls that you have to do compared to this last area here. I don't think we have seen a single team deal with the last trash area except the war machines that you can pull on top of Rixa that we see Pain for Femme doing now, and the trash that you need to do around the obelisk. Almost all of the other trash has been ignored by all of the MDI teams. Ricky going down, unfortunately.
That's okay. They're almost done with this pull. That's not going to be that bad for them. Actually, another fortunate time for a death to occur for Pain for Femme. That's only going to cost him another 10 seconds or something. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think there's basically no reason to pull the entire VMZ unless you are planning on doing the kite. Now, we did see Method EU pull the entire VMZ and then take the 3rd obelisk into the boss and just do 3 obelisks with boss, because they'd practiced their kiting strategy, but they didn't want to actually use it in that one match. So
true, yeah.
That was actually against Pain for Femme earlier. We might see Pain for Femme make a similar decision where they decide that their safest strategy is going to actually be to like backtrack and do this obelisk, especially if they know how far behind Eclatax is at this point. I think that it makes a lot of sense for them to make that kind of audible here, but I believe that they are planning to be able to do that kite, unless they've just found out a way to do a huge amount of trash here that is efficient count. Because if you think about it, the way that they do those Peacekeepers at the start of the dungeon, it kind of makes that first quarter inaccessible for any further count, right? They basically mined it for all the good count that is there. There is some good count between the first and second bosses that they could grab. You know, those drilling rigs is pretty efficient, and they skipped those, but besides that, there's not really anything huge that they skipped that, you know, you're thinking they really are missing out on to pull this here. So they might just be thinking that this is, you know, one efficient trash pull that they want to do just unironically.
Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility, right? We've seen so many teams show us completely different strategies. A disaster for Eclatax here, as they tried to do one of their Shadow Melt skips here to Azeroth, but didn't manage to get the Shadow Melt off properly or the Feign Death, and also engaged the boss somehow, and it was a full team wipe. So just more mistakes coming in by Eclatax here. Very, very unfortunate for them. Pain for them. I mean, at this point, I'm just excited to see if they're doing the kiting strat or not. But one thing to note as well is that if Pain for Femme is watching the stream, it is on a delay, but at some point they will figure out that Eclatax just had another wipe. Maybe they decide to adjust their strategy, so maybe even if they know how to do the kiting strat, maybe they just end up not doing it. Yeah, because they think it's safer, but it doesn't look like they're doing the obelisk.
I don't think they would need to. Actually, yeah, they wouldn't need this last trash pack here. They would still need some trash, I think, if they were planning to not kite. But yeah, doing all of this trash here, this is every single trash mob that can, you know, be a problem in the kite path. So yeah, I think that we might problem in the kite path. So yeah, I think that we might be. Oh, Mero goes down. I believe that might have been a charge shot that was blasting him there.
Also released, so Fem is starting to kite now because no healer to help him out. Did do a
that
huge
heroic leap away with those shots chasing him. That would be a great time to turn off your UI, take a screenshot, submit it on Twitter with the hashtag #WowScreenshot to our action shot contest. I don't know if any people in Pain for Fem found the time to do that, but that would be a big move if they did.
Wow. I have nothing to say to that. That was great. Keep on talking, Dreadnoughts.
All right, so we do see them at 100% trash count. I believe that does mean that we are going to see a kiting strategy from Pain for Femme. Yeah, there. Look at that. The Transcendence place. You see that really, really cool jump 360 and placing a Transcendence in the middle of that 360 so that it's facing the way that you want it to be facing later. That's another good candidate for the hashtag #WowScreenshot.
Okay, so it looks like they are gearing up to do the kite. So let's see what Miwa can do this time around. Now, they did the kite in Atal, and they had the spider snap back, and it caused a wipe for them. So it's definitely a possibility to happen here again. So let's see what Miwa can do. Let's hope we get the point of view of our Mistweaver here and see how he does the kiting. Well, the rest of the team definitely wants to make sure to avoid as much damage as possible, because not only is there no healer to heal them up, but if they have to heal themselves with, let's say, acceleration or a health pot, they will create
things from beyond. Things from beyond are chasing down Semic. Oh no! He doesn't have Exil. He's gonna have to turtle a thing from beyond there.
Oh no!
My goodness, Fem also very low is gonna need to find a way to survive all the heavy magic damage here. And there's just actions in so many different places here for Pain for Fem. As wow, Mero doing a great job here of keeping those awakened enemies tightly packed together, because if you get too far away from them, they will snap back. It looks like some of them are running back at the rest of the group now.
Yeah,
that is very bad. Good. 2 awakened enemies running back, and they will be killing the rest of the group here. This will be a wipe for Pain for Femme. Unfortunately, as there are 2 awakened enemies that are making their way now back into the fray here. No. Fem goes down, and they're now snapping around and just doing... This is like a Outlaw Rogue killing spree style, you know, teleporting to each person and one-shotting them. Oh my goodness. Pain for Femme with another disastrous failure on the kite strategy. They should definitely activate the obelisk. Yes, yeah.
They should. I mean, they have to make this decision now because they're still ahead. They can do the obelisks and just play this safe. They really should not try this again, I don't think. And
looks like they are walking towards that obelisk rather than around the side here. Ooh. Yes, yeah, they are going to be activating that obelisk. This is a good strategy from Pain for Femme. This is going to make it so that they will not end up losing this series here somehow. That would be... Oh my goodness. I don't know if my heart could take it here if they tried to kite again and had it go wrong again.
I mean, Eclatax, they're still far behind, right? They're just now engaging Rixa, and they're also on 14 deaths. So still a pretty big advantage for Pain for Femme. But if they would have just tried the kiting again and they would have failed again, then it would have been time for Eclatax to come back. So I think this is a very, very good decision by Pain for Femme to just maybe scrap the kiting idea, it's too risky. Finish off Samrak, and if they have 3 obelisks, they can definitely deal with that on the last boss. They've already shown in the past that they're able to deal with obelisks at the boss here. And they also have the comfort, right? They have the Triple Hunter, which can taunt off the Tank Buster Spirit Breaker, and they do have the interrupt sword and do this with 3 obelisks.
They are putting down world markers now so that they'll be able to call out which quadrants of the room are safe. Having a little strategy session before pulling the boss here. And they will now be pulling, let's see, so they could also be trying to do a 3 obelisk kite, but yeah, actually, we do see Mewo pops the Dampen Harmon, is getting threat here. Oh, no. Oh, no. They are going to try it again. All right, so this could be the end of the tournament for Pain for Femme if this goes wrong. This could be where they depart here. It all comes down to whether or not they're able to make this kite work on the last boss of Motherload. 2 times we've seen teams attempt kiting on this boss. 2 times we've seen it fail. Once was Method EU a couple weeks ago, and now it has been Pain for Femme that has happened to. But there isn't a fear guy in the mix. However, there is still the Spider and the Urgroth Breaker of Heroes, both of which are the most problematic ones in the kite. The fear guy doesn't actually do much of anything there.
The one difference of not having the fear guy is that Miwa can actually, theoretically, if he would get hit by a cast from the Void Weaver, he can dispel himself, right? Otherwise,
that's true, but he does have Tiger's Lust for it either way,
True.
But he might be using Tiger's Lust just for the movement speed generally. All right, so we're going to take a look in, and yeah, look how far behind Urgroth Breaker of Hero is. Miro needs to make sure that he doesn't let Urgroth get too far away, and this is going to be the U-turn. The U-turn is the most important part here, as that is where he needs to, yeah, you see that has done a good job of now grouping them all back up together. 1 cast goes through, but that is fine. He can live that. And in fact, it's nice because it means he can get a little bit more healing aggro. Urgroth is catching up. He's going to roll just out of range of that. And they are getting back towards the boss area now. Now, this is also where we've seen there be some problems before, as if you get too close to the boss area, that's where the other members of your group can start to get threat again.
Yeah, and I mean, we still need to kite for a long time as well, because we're just now in the intermission phase, right? They're now in the intermission phase. This means there's also going to be a lot of damage in the group right now. So they're also going to have to heal themselves a lot with acceleration. You see Sebek just used his Exil. So there's going to be a lot of healing aggro being created by the rest of the group. And this is still a long time he has to kite this for. Now the second drill down happens, so you see everyone dropping low, and 1 more drill down, then they can finish up the boss.
How is Sebek going to be a lot? How is he going to survive? Okay, I guess he's getting healed up with Spirit Men's. Oh, he's got an Eye of Corruption brocking on him, though. Brutal things happening there, but okay, it looks like they're actually okay, and they've gotten through the intermission. They're working on the last bit of Mogul Razdunk here. Mewo doing the U-turn once again. Oh, Urgroth! Oh, Mewo nearly
that was so close.
He's going to survive. Very, very tight, though, on this kite.
He was already, like, doing the cast, right? The Spirit Breaker, and the only reason why he survived was because he teleported, and if you're too far for the Spirit Breaker to finish, like, for example, a tank leaping away, then it will not finish off. So this is why Miwa actually survived. That was incredibly close, and Mogul Razdunk dropping lower and lower. They should be able to finish it off, but yeah, what a close game. Again, Pain for Femme almost messing that last pull up here with the kiting strat. But yeah, Pain for Femme winning the second game here and making it a 1-1.
That was terrifying.
Yeah.
Almost like going for it a second time, almost throwing it away on that one. I mean, great kiting on the second try by Miwa there, but man, I would not try that one again at all, Tranos.
Yeah, oh my goodness. That was wild. I think I figured out why they did the Fear Spire before going back to the boss. I think it was because Revival was on cooldown, and so they couldn't pull the boss anyways until Revival had come back to dispel those first 2 fears and generate a bunch of healing aggro anyways. So they decided to wait and just do the Spire in the meantime. It wasn't... Because it doesn't make the kiting meaningfully easier to not have the Fear guy included, I don't think.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter all that much in any specific area. If anything, you'd prefer to have, like the Tank Buster or Caster taken out or something like that out of the mix.
I think the Tank Buster is the one you would want to remove first because it is the one that makes the U-turning most important because it is the one that lags the farthest behind.
Yep. But
wow,
very good use out of Transcendence though. I mean, that's exactly what you need to do. But I think he also had to burn his cocoon a little bit earlier there as well, Tettles, as we kind of break down some high highs and some very low lows throughout that.
I mean, dude. Okay, so at the very beginning of the match, Pain for Femme looked exceptionally strong. Their Peacekeeper kiting with coin-operated Crowd Pummeler was exceptional. They made sure that they didn't have any Peacekeeper healing, any coin-operated Crowd Pummeler healing even. It looked great. On the side of Eclatax was having a few problems. They ended up having like a full team wipe. They were looking like they were being set pretty far behind there. Paint for Femme kind of just keep chugging along. They end up killing Azarok. They end up killing Rix of Flux Flame with 50% trash count. And you're just like, okay, yeah, they're gonna kite these obelisks. They start kiting the obelisks. They have a full team wipe, and you're just like, oh, this is really bad. They actually, like Dratna said, they almost got eliminated from the tournament and from the LAN in one swift swoop by Eclatax because of kiting of obelisks in 2 separate dungeons.
Yeah, and
Holy moly.
It just seemed like they would have learned from it as well, Nagura. I mean, maybe if it was just like the obstinance where they just said, okay, we're going to do this. This is our strategy, and we're going to do this.
Yeah, I mean, when they killed Semrek, I thought they would for sure just try and kill off the awakened mobs properly. But, I mean, if this is the only thing they practice, I mean, I know for a fact that the last cup, they did play the obelisk with the boss. But maybe because of different affixes or whatever, and because they didn't practice it for a while, maybe they just felt more comfortable doing the kiting over actually killing it. Even if it's more nerve-wracking to do and to watch, I think maybe they just ended up feeling more comfortable doing it this way. And it worked out.
Well, what obelisk are they going to go get?
Well, at that point, they only had, 3 obelisks left to do. It was more of a question,
playing
I think,
with the
of,
boss?
like, whether you could play it. Right?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like, playing with the boss instead of kiting.
They have the flexibility to move around as really much as they want across that platform because they all know the safe zones. They have 3 hunters, so I think they would just focus down caster, then
caster, then blob,
yeah, exactly.
and then tank buster last because you got all the pet taunts in the
Triple
hunter.
hunter, yeah.
So
I mean, we've seen teams 4 obelisk on that boss today.
We've seen that, and we've also seen Paint for Femme play obelisks into bosses. Not in that dungeon specifically, but it's like there's got to be some kind of muscle memory that's gonna get back into the cadence to be able to do that if they needed to, right? You'd think, right, Janos?
Yeah, I think, but on the other hand, if they practice that kite and the kite works for them, a sufficient percentage of the time, and they believe it's their best strategy, I think that sticking with it is also a reasonable thing to do. I mean. It just depends on really what percent they think that kite is to work out, because if it's 95 or something, then maybe, but like they were pretty close to 100% to win that match if they just brought 3 obelisks onto the boss and had 2 attempts of that instead of trying to kite twice.
Yeah, I can see the argument. It's just like after seeing them do it previously, we've seen so many teams, especially NA week, Nagura, I think is a perfect example. We didn't really see Method NA pull out a lot of kiting until day 2, until they actually were facing, upper final, grand final games, the big ones. That's when they started pulling out a lot of the kites. That's what I was kind of expecting to see from a lot of teams, because conceivably it'd be easier to pump the brakes than to be able to speed up.
Yeah, I mean, but if you look at this MOTHERLOAD specifically, I mean, is it even faster? Because you have to deal with all of this trash here in this last area, right? Which is usually trash that you don't even want to do. Usually you want to skip this. And it's possible to do 4 obelisks with the last boss. We've already seen teams deal with all 4 awakened mobs and the last boss at the same time. So in the end, you can do the kiting strat, but if it's not going to give you a huge time advantage, then maybe it's not even worth the risk. It looks like Pain for Femme is thought that it's worth the risk, but you see what happens here. In time trials is a different kind of story, right? Because time trials, you have 5 tries to get your best time on the board. But in the tournament, you only have 1 try, right? So if it's such a risky strategy that it will fail, let's say, 40% of the time, then I'm not sure if that's the play that you want to do in a tournament like this.
Yeah, just putting your life on the line on it.
Yeah.
On the other hand, fighting 4 awakened enemies with end bosses is something that we also see go wrong. It went wrong for Method EU today.
Yeah.
So it's, there's not really, the only safe way to do this is to fight 3 obelisks on your way to the last boss, and so you have to take some kind of risk instead of doing that.
That is true, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what these teams decide is the best answer. In King's Rest, it is not going to be kiting. I don't think
Yeah.
that it's something that anybody has done
I don't
so.
think that is ever the answer. And, mana becoming a really critical issue as well, Tettles, because of that extra Grievous coming in, especially on the last boss, not only for the jumps from Dazar, but also just people getting hit by tornadoes.
I mean, dude, we watched Method EU wipe on King Dazar. Grievous is not a joke, like, especially whenever you are playing the triple obelisk. His Quaking Leap cast puts you into typically in the 2 stack of Grievous range. Generally, Hunters, while they do have Spirit Mend, are not exactly the most, like, they don't have the best survivability, and Mystery Monks burn through mana pretty quickly, so wiping on Dazar is not an uncommon scenario that we've seen.
Yeah, and the pressure really gets on to how much easier you're going to make it for your healer, how much easier you're going to make it for your tank as well for that, and even in some cases, just the impossible ends up happening to Gurez. The catalyst for Method EU's wipe was just off the back of a fear.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking too, because he saw Jinji just already starting his disengage because he knew he needs to avoid that, and then he just gets that fear mid-disengage, and his character stands still, and he gets one-shot by that jump. So definitely things like that can happen, and getting bad overlaps. Now, one thing I wanted to note was that none of the Method EU hunters actually played Dwarf, because if they were playing Dwarf, he could have actually gotten rid of that, but they chose to play Night Elf instead. Not really sure why some play Dwarf and some Night Elf, but definitely cost them there in that scenario.
We'll see what these teams are going to be pulling out as our decider game is underway, as Pain for Femme and Eclatax are fighting for their tournament lives here in King's Rest.
And in a story as old as time itself, it is the dwarfs against the elves here. All 5 members of Pain for Femme are playing some flavor of dwarf, whereas it is all night elves on the side of Eclatax. So I think that means that, yeah, absolutely, as you were saying, Pain for Femme are going to have an easier time dealing with those fears on the last boss. In addition to Revival and the Warrior Fear Immune, each of them has a Stone Form ability as well to be able to remove a fear on the last boss. On the side of Eclatax, they have that Shadow Meld for the skips, but Pain for Femme, I think they'll be able to get a similar effectiveness out of just using the Awakened portals without actually killing the Awakened enemies inside, doing the whole boss combat pull-out. Femme goes solo, gets the Life Cocoon on this very first big pull of the dungeon. Meanwhile, Eclatax doing this room in 2 pulls rather than 1, so this is going to take them longer, but it will be safer.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that Femme actually dropping really low. The Ring of Peace come out of Meebo here to be able to enable Femme to kite a little bit here as he is leaping away. Should be able to recover, and it's only those champions alive. Actually, there's one Witch Doctor. Shadowbolt Volley almost going through. Need to make sure they finish that off. There we go. So a little bit of a scary moment here for Femme, but did recover. But yeah, interesting to see that they also are running Dwarf on the healer and the tank, since it's not a necrotic environment, but still running that dwarf here, which means there's no skips available for them. Now, on the hunters, running dwarfs is not as big of a deal because they still have Feign Death to de-aggro something for a skip. But when your tank and your healer are running dwarf too, then there's no way you can do that. But
Femme gets stunned by one of the Awakened Guardians there. He is going to be alive, but very, very
that was
barely.
super scary. They definitely want to make
goodness.
sure they don't have anything like that happen again, as Eclatax has some issues on their side as Basud goes down, and Alexand as well. This is going to be super hard for them to recover. They do have a Battle Rest, but it's only an Engineering Rest they need to use. They don't have a Battle Rest
And the
class.
Witch Doctor's free casting.
This might
Oh,
be a
Shadowbolt
full
Volley.
life.
Good interrupt on that. Very low on HP, though, as they do have that Grievous stack ticking on them, and I'm not sure what caused everybody to wait so long before releasing there. They may have been trying to get that Battle Res, I guess. That does make some sense. But yeah, that is going to cost Eclatax a lot of time, and Pain for Femme are once again going to be taking an early lead in this dungeon, but they had an early lead in Atal'Dazar as well, and they managed to lose there, so it is definitely not over yet. Eclatax needs to keep up from here. They need to stay within a few minutes of Pain for Femme to be able to capitalize on Pain for Femme if they have a big wipe like Method EU did. Otherwise, they'll get in this unfortunate position like they did in the Motherload, where even if something goes really wrong for Pain for Femme, they're just not close enough to capitalize.
It looks like they need to deal with those minions of Sul. It looks like one of their hunters who feigned death on the other side got some aggro's from the minions, as you see to fix it on him. Now Feign Death coming out to de-aggro. Looks like they're pulling some trash as well. I don't think this was intended. I think this was just maybe proximity aggro from the minions of Sul who were chasing that hunter here.
And what is going on here? I'm very confused about what the... Did they pull the Witch Doctor and not the Warrior? How did that aggro?
Oh, they don't. They're not actually.
They're not proxy
Yeah, they're
linked?
not. They're not.
Huh. All right. Well, we got a big pull coming out from Eclatax here. Not part of the plan, but
They're dealing with it.
This is the pull that they're doing now.
Yep.
So that's the new plan. Meanwhile, Pain for Femme have taken down that first boss, and they just need to execute their route cleanly here. The faster they can do the rest of this dungeon, the more room for error they're going to have on that last boss. So far, they have needed room for error in order to win any of these maps with that last boss. So far for them, but you know this is not going to be a kiting boss. This is going to be actually fighting these awakened enemies. So it remains to be seen if that is better or worse for them than the kiting strategy dungeons.
Yeah, so it looks like Meebo is off pulling those guardians. Did get feared by one of those minions. So now the minions are on their way to the rest of the group. This time around, we don't have any like bolstering or any other on-death affixes. So it shouldn't be a big deal to deal with those minions. Don't need a perfect timing or anything like that. You see a binding shot come out by the hunters, so now they're just gonna damage them down. They don't have Blood Elf racials or any offensive dispels to deal with those. They're just gonna DPS through the shield to kill them.
Yeah, they're now into this gauntlet room. It does activate in a preset order here on the Tournament Realm. It's always that one, the top left one, looking into the room, and then around in a counterclockwise direction, which lets these teams plan out exactly when they want to bring in those animated guardians, which pulls they want to bring it onto. We've actually seen different answers from different teams. Kind of the default was to bring them onto the second pull here, because that's when it just shows up if you send your healer to go and get them after the boss dies. But recently in the NA Cups, we'd seen a couple teams delaying them to be into the other side of the room instead. That was a Necrotic environment, though, which is not active here in the EU Cup.
Actually, I think I like pulling them into the left side just because of the hunters that they're running, right? Because of the slight damage increase you get by having more than 2 targets for the hunters. I think I like that general idea, but not sure how big of a damage increase it actually is to have them for the other side.
And somebody got mind controlled there and trapped somebody else's pet. That is toxic.
That is very toxic.
I'm not sure how exactly that happened, but definitely there was a trapped pet on the battlefield for Paint for Femme. So pretty
It's a smart
pretty weird.
AI.
Whatever sequence of events led to that. Yeah, it might have just been somebody's pet. Somebody's trap was down, and then one of them switched to sides, and that caused the trap to go off.
It's possible that the AI just casts trap instantly, because whenever my druid gets mind controlled, it immediately just casts entangling roots on somebody every single time. So maybe that's just how the hunter AI works, just throws a trap on there.
Yeah, there's some nice default ones, like when the demon hunters get targeted on the Heartsbane Triad and they just immediately vengeful retreat always.
Yes.
Very, very, very toxic. Paint for Femme, though, gonna be getting through this gauntlet room. Let's see what they're gonna do with this obelisk here. If I was Paint for Femme, if I knew exactly how bad things were going for Eclatax, no matter what my strategy was before, I would be looking to add some obelisks onto my route and take them away from that last boss fight. I'd just be saying, look, let's not do anything too difficult on this last boss fight. Let's do it with 2 obelisks or something and win this match for sure, rather than taking any risks.
Yeah, most definitely. I 100% agree that this is the play they should be going for, specifically with the obelisk, because that is the one thing that costs you the most time in this dungeon, right? Or in any dungeon. If you have a mistake like that on the last boss with the awakened mobs, it will cost you so much time, and they all respawn. That is the worst part about it. Even if you manage to finish off all of the awakened mobs with the last boss, if you then have a wipe, then they will all respawn and you have to deal with them again. And if you then don't have Bloodlust or any or defensive/offensive cooldowns available, then it's gonna be so much harder, like we see in the junkyard earlier, right?
Yes, Junkyard. I'd almost managed to successfully block that from my memory, but thank you for reminding me that happened. Yeah. Paint for Femme, going into this room here now, they've got this teeming purification construct in here. They're going to be doing the whole room together, maybe waiting for that first entomb and then going into the boss, maybe waiting for 2 entombs, we'll see. Laser beam goes around. They have to make sure they dodge that. It does do quite a bit of damage, even on Tyrannical. Ooh, and they have to break their friend out of the tomb, but unfortunately they were getting zoned by that laser, yeah.
Yeah, so fun fact, at the start of VFA, during Teeming in King's Rest, there were actually 2 purification constructs on that bridge.
Yeah.
And it was not fun to deal with.
Yeah, you'd get this nice, the beams would be going in opposite directions and there's just no counterplay. Yeah, that was good times. There were some really good teaming pulls at the start of BFA that they, walked back on a few of them, but those were good times.
And then during teaming weeks, you still have the purification construct stand on the right side.
Right.
Because there were 2 in the past, so they didn't reset the positioning of it.
That's a bonus feature.
Makes it easier to skip too.
It does indeed. Machimba now, okay, so you can see traps coming down from the hunters. They're putting a trap in front of each of the coffins that they're going to click on. And that's going to allow them here to click on a bunch of coffins as soon as this entomb goes out. And you can see they've got some zombies spawned. But because they have those traps... Wow, that was really close to get... Oh my goodness! A damage effect happened to one of them that broke it out of a CC, but yeah, they're going to be okay. So they just need to make sure that they maintain their crowd control effect on those zombies. And because they broke their friend out of that coffin as quickly as possible, that is going to prevent the boss from doing any more abilities for the rest of this fight. Does mean that Fem is going to be getting meleeed very hard for the rest of the fight, though.
Yeah, Machimba definitely one of those bosses that do a lot of tank damage. So not having any of those abilities being cast by the boss means that there's no breathing room for Fem. There's no downtime because the boss is not doing anything other than hitting him. So definitely want to make sure they use their defenses properly, as the last stand is being used by Fem here to make sure he's fine, and Nevo making sure he's healing a lot, as he's also doing a lot of DPS actually. 42k DPS coming out of the Mistweaver, a lot of damage.
That is definitely an impressive amount above the tank. Rare to see that much, but there really isn't all that much group-wide damage going on here. So as long as he keeps that, that enveloping mist up on Fem whenever he needs it, he can really just go to town on the rising sun kicks and stuff. All those monk abilities that Jack loves to talk about all the time.
Alright, so now we're going to be seeing a very difficult pull by Pain for Fem, because Teeming makes it so there's actually a brute spawning on top of this trash bag, which is already hard without the brute itself. You have...
yeah, we saw now actually just go down to this pull last time, but looks like Fem not going to have the same thing happen to him. Even finds time to get a Marechta's Fang channel off there. Gonna shield wall and charge back down as the slam comes out, and they've decided they're just not going to move out of that brutal crush. They've had enough. They'll stay inside.
It was definitely intended to. They definitely planned on just taking this hit instead of just moving out and just out healing it. Nevo as well on his Mistweaver, just making sure he wants to stay in melee because he needs to heal the group up with his cooldowns running. They do have Bloodlust available, but definitely looks like they want to save it at this point for that last boss. And we also see a Raptor jumping around, so they did pull another pack on top of it. They want to be careful here because the healing totem spawned, and the Brute is actually getting healed quite a bit.
Oh, no, no. Oh, no. Okay, they do a good job of getting away from the crush. That was close. Another Brute, though, is patrolling towards them. Let's see if they decide to pull that one. That one is the one that is more commonly skipped. Meanwhile, on the side of Eclatax, they are inside Machimba the Embalmer's room. They're about 4 minutes behind where Pain for Fem is. 4 minutes here, probably a wipe and a half from Pain for Fem, but maybe if it's one really catastrophic wipe, that'll be enough for Eclatax to get back in this game. Especially if Pain for Fem wipes before they update their graveyard. That can be a really, really costly wipe in terms of time.
Also, maybe if Pain for Fem decides to actually just deal with the obelisks, while Eclatax maybe is not. Pain for Fem definitely can afford to deal with them, but that will bring them closer and closer. And if they deal with the obelisks first, as we see them dealing with Voidweaver here, that will actually mean that any sort of mistake, even if it's not a super big one, can mean that Eclatax does have the chance to win this one. But yeah, it looks like they're dealing with the Voidweaver here and not with the other obelisks. We've seen some teams just do a double obelisk pull here because they're standing right next to each other, so it's very convenient to just deal with both of them. But Pain for Fem just dealing with Voidweaver by itself.
Yeah, generally that's an either or. Like, you either do that or you do the Fear obelisk earlier, and Pain for Fem decided to do that Fear obelisk earlier.
Yeah.
There's not really much of a need to take care of the blood, given they can now just have the blood and the tank buster with the last boss. Not a very difficult combination at all when your group is made up of 3 hunters.
Yeah, definitely true. And maybe they didn't actually deal with... maybe their plan is to not deal with the Void Weaver. Maybe they just want to use it as a skip, right? Which we have seen from Method A, where they activate the obelisk, but then they just have one person not go inside, run all the way to the boss. They pull the boss, and because you're in boss combat, everyone just gets pulled out of the Ny'alotha realm, and the obelisk mob that wake him up just stays in there. That's a very likely possibility because they're also all running dwarves, right? So they can't be doing any other skips.
Yes, so that if we see them play this map against somebody like Method EU, that might well be what they're planning to do, and then fighting that 3 obelisk. But I think a great adjustment by them to instead be killing the awakened enemy here. This might also just be their plan, 2 obelisks,
Maybe.
not that much slower than 3 and a lot safer.
Yeah, and hunters are really good at just killing that Void Weaver on the way anyway, right? Definitely looked like they didn't lose a lot of time dealing with that one instead of just running to the boss. So not a huge time loss for them as they're dealing with Kula here. Since they're all running dwarves, definitely Kula not as big of a deal like it could be otherwise, because the Severing Axe, which is the bleed that does a lot of damage, can just be dwarf racialed off. So you just use your dwarf racial and it will be gone. And you also have the turtle as well, which can be used to just immune it as well if you use it in the right moment.
Yeah, that one's tricky because you kind of have to predict that the axe is getting thrown at you, and that requires looking at where the thing is aimed. But because they are playing that dwarf, it is really trivial, especially because it only gets 1 or 2 of those casts off before it dies. Anyways, it is tyrannical though, so maybe I got that 3rd off either. Anyways, they are on to Xanazal the Wise now, the 2nd of 3 bosses in this encounter. Once they kill this boss fight, they will update their graveyard, and that reduces how bad things can go wrong for them. If they were to somehow wipe to this boss fight, their graveyard is still right at the front of the dungeon, and that would spell disaster for them.
Yep, looks like Eclatax is now also in this difficult pull here with the Teeming Brood on top of the Berserkers plus Witch Doctor and the Spectral casters here as well. They did commit their Bloodlust for this specific pull, just because of how difficult this one is to pull off, even in a Tyrannical environment. This is just very, very hard to deal with. Now, the Berserkers maybe not the biggest problem here because they do have the Hunter pets to actually take that bleed effect the Berserkers do, and the Hunters are doing a good job to make sure the pets are actually taking it. But not only the Berserkers are a problem here, but also just having the Witch Doctors cast, and also all of these Spectral Bolts plus Hexes that need to be interrupted. And on top of that, you have constantly healing totems that you need to focus down, otherwise the trash will just heal up a bunch and cost you a lot of time.
Yeah, absolutely here. Eclatax making good time. They're aside from what went wrong for them at the start of this dungeon, I think that they would be on the same boss here as Paint for Femme, which is a great place to be. To challenge Pain for Femme and make sure that Pain for Femme cannot have something go wrong without losing the map. Unfortunately, because of that big wipe for Eclatax, and given that they're already playing that slower route, I think that Pain for Femme has quite a bit of...
It looked like Mabo actually dropped incredibly low on one of the barrel throws here, because it looked like 2 or even 3 players dodged the charge, and therefore it didn't split the damage onto them, and Mimo got hit by a lot of damage, but didn't go down, so no problem. They still need 16% trash, 2 obelisks, but definitely need to deal with some trash packs here as well. Looks like they're dealing with the 2 Berserkers, which seems like a really slow pull. But again, at this point they probably know they're really far ahead, so they can just take it slow.
Yeah, this might be kind of the opposite of what they did in MOTHERLOAD, where they kind of tried to just do the same strategy even after they knew they were pretty far ahead, and as a result they almost lost. On the other hand, since they are playing those dwarfs, they do need to get themselves into a position where they can actually invis pot the whole way through. At least Femme and Mewo do, so maybe those 2 Berserkers are just part of the plan. Looks like they're just going to be going into this trash pull, though.
Maybe they were planning to pull the Berserkers on top of this. Just do like...
Probably the normal pull. Yeah, exactly. It's probably supposed to be all of this together.
Yeah.
And they decided to pump the brakes a little bit, given that they are so far ahead. do believe I think that's a good decision for Pain for Femme.
Yeah,
Especially
100%.
with Teeming active. Getting that Raptor included in that, it's normally a 5-pack, it goes up to a 6-pack with Teeming, and adds that Raptor in there, it can be very, very difficult. Pet's getting dismissed now, and we do have, so we got Feigned Deaths, and actually they can just triple trap,
Yeah.
and then one Hunter can get next to it, get in combat here, and now everybody else can run through without getting in combat, and then the Hunter who is in combat can feign death later. That's going to be the way that they skip past this pack, moving in to Shadow of Zul. No Fortified, so Shadow of Zul shouldn't be too bad, but it is Grievous, so still not to be underestimated.
Yep, and
I've seen Method EU fight trash with Zul, but I'm not going to do that.
that is definitely very. I mean, when we saw it for the first time, they did it during Bolstering, which made it even scarier. This time, we don't have that affix, but it's still a very scary thing to do, even on a non-fortified setting. Just Shadow of Zul doing so much damage, as you can see on Fem with Grievous, and just the incoming magic damage. It's just very scary to deal with. And then you also have the RNG of the AoE zones spawning close to Shadow of Zul as well, which can cause lots of issues. Of course, if it spawns far away, you can just outrange it and nothing will happen. But if it spawns close to the boss, it's really hard to move Shadow of Zul because it just constantly casts. So it can definitely cause some issues. There we go, I see AoE zone actually spawning. Sebek being the hero, jumping into it, but soaking it does also do a lot of damage. So that is why Sebek actually dropped so incredibly low. But now they are done with Shadow of Zul, and they only have to deal with those 2 obelisks this time around, and they also have that Bloodlust available.
Yeah, now all that's saying. Wait, where is Paint for Femme going? Where? Okay, they're going over to the far side here. I guess this is gonna cause the Okay, I would cause the Okay, I wonder what they're up to here. I guess they're just. Okay, they're maybe trying to do some outranging stuff, but it looks like they just want to be fighting over here because this is where Tazala ends up spawning, perhaps. Or maybe they wanted to make sure that Urgroth did a Dark Fury cast at the right time. And they are on to this last boss fight with just these 2 awakened enemies. This is all that stands between Paint for Femme and Day 2 appearance tomorrow, which, whew, this is close for Paint for Femme. This is a lot closer than they would have liked up against Eclatax, but Eclatax did a really good job this series of making it so Pain for Femme really couldn't afford to have, things go too wrong in multiple dungeons.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a little bit unfortunate for them that they had this mistake at the very start of the dungeon, falling behind at the very start, and then also having this mispull that happened right afterwards. It just cost them so much time, so it was really hard for them to come back after that initial wipe that they had there in the beginning. But yeah, Pain for Femme dealing with the obelisk pretty cleanly. Blood is about to go down here as well, so now they only have the boss left to deal with, which it is Tyrannical and Grievous, so still lots of damage going out, and you definitely want to make sure you dodge these tornadoes. Ricky dropping incredibly low.
He got hunting leaped, knocked back into one, huge amounts of damage coming out on him. But yeah, he is going to be alright as Tazala does spawn. This is a dangerous part of the fight. They do not have turtles available except for Shelly, so they're going to get feared on this first fear cast from Tazala. Shelly also letting that one through, might turtle a future one, might just hold on to it for a rainy day. Are they going to be able to get this? I think they're going to get one more fear.
Peace as well.
There it is. Everybody getting set back. Shelly using that turtle, though, to avoid the fear. And they've killed Tazala, now just Dazar left. Soon there will be the spears dropping from the ceiling as well. But that is not usually too bad. Groups usually are able to manage that particularly well, especially by standing in this spot in the room. Depending on which of the 2 patterns they get, if they get the pattern where it circles around the room, it will do basically nothing here. If they get the other pattern, then they will have to do some annoying dodging, but it still shouldn't cause them to wipe.
Yeah, definitely shouldn't be any problems for them at all. We see Maywood dropping in a little bit low on mana, and everyone actually in Grievous range here because of the jump that went out, but should be able to recover. And we also have the self healing available for all the hunters as well, with the acceleration being ready. So in case something happens, they can still use that acceleration to get themselves back up. They also have 3 battle rests available in case someone goes down. So yeah, this definitely should be Pain for Fem's game here. As man, that was a nail biter. Both of those lower bracket games earlier as well. Eclatax Such a close game, and I think they're a really good team, to be honest, for their first presence here in the MDI. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing them in the next MDI and how well they can be, how well they can do if they're there from the beginning.
So, I have an update for you about what has happened with Paint for Fem.
Oh, they don't have enough.
They have 98% enemy forces and will be needing to backtrack here. As you saw a bunch of them move towards where the treasure chest would be. I don't think that this is part of the plan. But somehow they've missed count somewhere along the way.
It's not on the expert route?
This is not in the expert
It
route.
looks like they had enough. Did their awaken mob not give them count? I thought they had enough.
I'm not 100% sure either.
Something.
They're having a little think here, and they're going to be pulling the stretch mods.
I mean, they have enough
Yeah,
time,
I've seen them
right?
out. Yeah, they got plenty. Yeah.
That Raptor, all they have to do is kill one of these, I think, and that'll be all the count they need. Whew. Another thing went wrong here for Paper Fam. Otherwise, though, a zero-death run, but still, 24 minutes and something like 30 seconds is going to end up being their time here. That is like 3 minutes slower than Deplete from Beyond on a not clean run from Deplete from Beyond as well. So they definitely have to have a faster strategy if they are hoping to compete against those teams tomorrow.
Well, it is, getting late night in Europe, but these guys got to make sure they have a conversation at the end of this and they figure out whatever is actually going wrong, because Paper Fem needs to be ready for tomorrow as they get their 100% of trash count as the last remaining mobs reset. And they will be moving on and eliminating